back to the Property Frontline Market Watch series. I'm here again today with Scott Hoaxan. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Debra. Hello, everyone.
So we've got an absolutely packed episode for you today. We'll be covering off the January 2026 normal market performance. We've got an updated forecast for where the property market will head for 2026. And for our In Focus session, Scott and I will be covering off the best strategies or the most popular strategy that people are using this year to leverage into their dream home. So let's get going. As always, we use the data from three of the most reliable data centers, so Totality, PropTrack, and SQM Research. For the January performance, Scott, would you like to take us through the first four locations?
Sure. So this is January monthly stats for house prices. And just a quick note as we go into this, we pointed this out before. It's pretty light sales month in January.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot less data to be driving these stats. It'll become a bit more clear as we get into February and March. But here's what January looked like. Sydney was up 0.3% in the totality stats. PropTrack basically flat, 0.1%. And SQM's asking price data really flat, minus 0.1%. Pretty flat across the board there in Sydney. Down to Melbourne was only positive in the totality stats, up 0.2%. PropTrack minus 0.1%, and SQM had a fall in asking prices of 1.5% there. Brisbane solidly up. Totality 1.5% growth for the month. That's a really strong month there for January. Again, very limited data though. PropTrack's was much lower at 0.3% growth, and SQM had strong growth up 1.8% in asking price data for Brisbane. Adelaide, bit of a mixed story there from the data sources. Pretty strong growth from Totality and PropTrack, 1.3% and 1% up. SQM had a decrease in house asking prices of minus 2%. Probably just some limited data there driving that as well. Handing back over to Debra to take us through the rest of our capital cities.
Okay, starting with Perth. So Perth, Totality had Perth up by 1.9%, PropTrack up by just 0.3%, and SQM, so Perth's gearing up. Their asking prices bounding up to 2.3%. Hobart, Totality has Hobart at positive 0.4%, PropTrack negative 0.7%, and SQM up 1.1%. Darwin, Totality has strong performance there, 1.6% in the positive, PropTrack just 1%, while SQM, an outlier, asking prices for Darwin up by a massive 4.6% just in a month. That's crazy. We question again. Anyway, the data, but this is what they've reported. Canberra, Totality in the positive by 0.5%, PropTrack negative by 0.1%, and SQM negative 1.7%. Then nationally, Totality in the positive by 0.8%, PropTrack 0.2%, and SQM negative 4%. Okay, what else have we got here? One of my favorite slides. So houses. So to explain what this is the rolling percentage change to each area. So the percentage change of prices, are they going up or are they going down? Scott, you've got a better way of explaining this, haven't you?
Sure. So this is the trailing 12 months growth rate of houses. What we're looking at is a curve. You can imagine it being a roller coaster. As we head up to the top of the roller coaster, the growth rate is actually growing. We call it growth in growth rates. So
Yeah.
if we're heading up the curve, the growth in the growth rates is faster. And once we head the top and we head back down, the growth in the growth rates is slowing. But
Yeah.
actual growth rate in the markets is all positive, as you can see.
Yeah.
So markets are sort of all growing. It's just a matter of,
Of
is the
the
monthly
strength.
growth going up each month or going down?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And so looking at it more closely, so we can see Canberra. So it's Canberra, Sydney, and Melbourne. Yeah. Canberra, Sydney, and Melbourne. The power is going out of that market. And then Adelaide, while still got a bit of steam, starting to calm down, while the other three, so that is Darwin, Perth, and Brisbane, uh, have a lot of power in them. But we've also now, oh, so is there anything you want to mention before
I
we go
just
on?
think Perth. I think Perth stands out there just as really ramping up in growth. You can still see that spike as it heads up the curve. Um,
Yeah,
so it'd be interesting to see what the monthly stats look like there in the next 2 months.
yeah. And rightly so. It's just got all of the growth factors happening there. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Darwin because I was explaining this to some of some of the people in my database last month, and I always say, well, be careful about Darwin. Like, sure, it looks like it's performing well, but it's such a tiny market, and so to prove my point, let's have a look at the amount of properties in the greater areas, and we'll talk about population as well. But if we say that Darwin is doing so well, like there's only around about 70,000 dwellings in Darwin. So when it gets a percentage bump, it only has like they only have to sell 5 properties in Darwin.
Yeah,
A few more than that, but Perth is performing very well, but they've got a market that's like 10 times or more the size of Darwin. So that's what I mean. We like Darwin, well, and also Hobart, that they are the size that they're smaller than a lot of our regional centres that are booming at the moment. So be very, very careful about that. That's why I'm not a fan, unless you want to actually buy a home in those places. I don't really, I'm not rating them as like good, reliable opportunities for investment. Is there anything you want to say about this slide, Scott?
um, just the data tracking people out there. I mean, just watch your data because you may see a short-term surge. And as we well know, property is a medium and long-term gain. So that short blip of data in a small market, as Deborah has said, may not be sustaining over a long period of time.
Been on the boil for 12 months, but for me, it just feels like one of those situations where, the price has been artificially increased and it doesn't have the sustainability to keep it going. So people are going to lose money, particularly if they drive in now.
Yeah, well, certainly you got to be aware of getting late to the party. And a market like Darwin has a long period where it can have negative or flat growth as well. I mean, I
Mm.
think they're not even back to their all-time record high yet, versus most of the capital cities are hitting their record highs every single month. Melbourne's still a bit short, but the other ones,
By record high, what do you mean of their?
all-time peak pricing. So the highest pricing that's ever been in that market, and the Darwin market is still not back up to where it was many years ago.
And may never return?
Mm.
because, build costs and things like that. And because, you might buy in Darwin, but you don't have families and stay forever and build a future. It's really FIFO. It's
Yep.
nothing to keep that price up.
And yeah.
Yeah. Some people would say, well, oh, well, if it hasn't got back to its old price, maybe there's still room. But no, that's the wrong way to think about it. That's what
Mm.
I think anyway. You agree?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, alrighty. So what are you seeing in the market at the moment from your perspective? Setting aside the data, we're like toughing it out in the market ourselves. So all the forecasters can say whatever they like, but we actually set the price because we have to buy. And
Yeah.
what do you see?
Um, just an absolute frenzy for buying land in markets
Yeah.
like Brisbane and Perth. It is just crazy. Even owner occupiers like getting in line with the developers and submitting their EOIs. They should be given priority by these developers who want homeowners in their estates.
Yeah.
And investors are sort of second in line in that queue.
Yeah.
And just hearing constant stories of people that can just not get a block. It's happened to us in some regional Queensland markets too, like Harvey Bay and Bundaberg,
Yeah. Yeah.
where 6 to 9 months ago, we had quite a lot to pick from. We even had some pretty sexy duplex projects up in those areas. And that land supply is all been snapped up.
Yeah, yeah. And from the existing property side of things, we're seeing that as well. So the regional, particularly regional Queensland areas have got a fire behind them like I've never seen, and it's sustainable. So yeah, there's a lot of younger families moving to those areas because there's lots of jobs up there and because the better price point. But yeah, like once again, from like my perspective, we are really seeing that two-speed market. So anything kind of sub 1 million is selling within 24 hours, like goods and properties. But anything over that, people are very, very selective. Of course, what we are seeing is another speed up in the Penrith/Western Sydney market because the airport's coming on. And then, like the Perth market is like it's just leaping across the board so quickly. Even in like coastal areas, we're seeing like performance of like 10 to 20% really like going up. So like there's still some really good strategies if you want something in between. But yeah, it's very interesting out there. And yeah, so we'll see whether any more interest rates actually make a bit of a change. But the hot markets are very, very hot.
Yes.
Anything else?
Just, with the being hard to get land, builders are actually having a hard time getting land as well. And we always need to be thinking about the builders we're working with. Are they healthy? What does their business look like? So it's more
Yeah.
and more important all the time that you do a lot of due diligence on any builders. For those of you that are going to be creating new properties, been very bullish on dual income properties for a long time. I mean, our version are two dwellings on a property, house with a granny flat, a dual key house. Those have practically doubled up in Brisbane in the last 6, 7 years. Like I
Yeah.
remember when we could get those for in the 600,000s, and there wasn't a lot of buyers for them back then. And I'm not kidding you, it would be very difficult now to find anything for under 1.1 to 1.2.
Oh, yeah.
And even in regional markets, like we're looking at $1 million properties to get these
Yeah.
higher cash flows. So it's a real education process with people. I will get them ringing me up, and they seem to throw out a budget from 2 or 3 years ago. And it's
Yeah.
like, that's just ridiculous. You're going to have to take a look at the current market and see where we're at, or you're just not going to be competitive. You're going to be out wasting your time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's moving fast
Yeah.
and continuing. Yeah. So we can't see the steam coming out of it
Yes.
anytime soon. Okay, well, let's get back to our stats. Thanks for that, Scott. Can you now take us through the rental market overview?
Sure. We've got annual changes in rents here for houses and units across the capital cities. We're seeing the fastest growth in rents in the two smaller capital cities, Darwin and Hobart. Although interestingly, Brisbane is popping up there now. So
Yeah,
I think we would have thought we were starting to hit some peak top of market rents in markets like Brisbane and Perth, but things are so tight
mm,
and it's just moving to those areas so quickly that rents are going even higher. Sometimes that means you've got two families that are sharing a house these days in some of these areas.
yeah,
Um, Sydney's rents, what, 5 to 6% there for houses and units. That's actually quite strong as well.
yeah,
And then much slower down in Adelaide and Melbourne units are closer to inflation.
yeah. And it looks like there's some downward momentum, but
Yeah, it's look at tough time out there for tenants. I mean, I have to feel for them. Certainly as rents go up, probably for those that have the capacity to buy, that's going to be going through their head. Do I want to
mm,
keep paying this level of rent, or can I find some sort of property in the market that I could get into and own it?
and yeah, people are gonna just be thinking differently, which we've always done throughout history. Okay, so next, our most exciting experience here on MarketWatch. So the updated forecasts for 2026. So what we've done in this slide is pulled together the main forecasters who were brave enough to, put their estimates out there. Um, and so, Scott, could you take us through the first four markets?
Sure, I will do that. And just to point out with the SQM forecast that Louis made late last year, what we've done is we picked scenario 2 here, which was the sticky inflation. He had not included any interest rate increases in
No.
that. So this is probably a little bullish for the scenario that we're on now, but this is scenario 2. So for Perth, we've got forecasts between 5 and 14% growth for the coming year. SQM, KPMG, and ANZ were all on the high end.
Mm,
Domain, interestingly, was a bit more conservative, down at 5%, but all of their capital city forecasts were quite
conservative.
conservative, yes. Down to Brisbane, similar but not quite as high. The range is 5 to 12% growth for the year. SQM, KPMG, and ANZ were on the high side at up around 10%. Domain a bit lower, down at 5. Darwin, just a very wide range of forecasts there from 3 to 13%. Um, some pretty high growth expected by ANZ there, for instance, still 13% in the coming year. I think you're,
Yeah, whereas I think last year they didn't even forecast it.
yeah. So obviously, a fast year of growth puts a capital city on somebody's radar screen.
Yeah.
And then we sort of switch gears, down to the slower moving markets, and Melbourne's down forecasted at 2 to 7%. I mean, our inflation's around 3, so anything below 3 is not keeping pace with inflation.
Mm,
KPMG a bit more bullish there at 6.8%, and KPMG did growth. They did forecast for 2027 as well, and they did show some ramp up in growth there for Melbourne. I will note. It's a big city, and there's different pockets of that city that are moving at different growth rates,
yeah.
as many of our capital cities. Back over to Deborah to run us through the rest.
Okie dokie. So Sydney, almost mirroring Melbourne on the forecast side of things. So anywhere coming in anywhere, but in the positive, 2 to 7%. With SQM being most bullish. Adelaide, the range from 4 to 13%, pretty broad there. But SQM most bullish on that one. Hobart, 3 to 7%. Yeah. what would I say about that? Really, I just think that's like way too bullish. But it would be SQM that's done it. Though
Mm.
KPMG is pretty like quite positive about Hobart as well. And then Canberra, the range is an increase of 1% to 4.7%, with KPMG being the highest. And so that leaves us with capital cities of between 4 to 8%. But as always, this is just such a high level, but it does give us an indication of overall sentiment. Okay, so what have we got next? So mentionable news. This area has exploded really because we have had a lot of requests from our clients for a little bit more detail on this. So I'll cover key points that have happened over the last 4 to 6 weeks that will impact the Australian property market over the coming few months. So, of course, the big headline, we've had an unplanned increase in the interest rate due to high inflation. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Building approvals. Look, we we need around about 240,000 dwellings per year if we're going to reach the delivery target of 1.2 dwellings by, like, I think it was 2029. But anyway, so we're down a little, but up compared to 2024. So that's probably due to the government incentive. So that's a good thing.
Mm.
Generally, we've seen all governments, so federal, state, and local to some extent, really trying to free up supply. And so that has to start with providing more land, which is what the federal government is trying to do. Announced, I think it was only last week, that they're selling off a lot of their prime defence locations for the purposes of, I'm expecting, residential housing, but I don't know that they've said that's what it is. And of course, the states are really working as hard as possible to do their bit, which means they've got to put stormwater in, they've got to um, provide a lot more of that basic infrastructure that a lot of our residential buyers just would take for granted. All of that's got to be done before builders can go in and subdivide and build. But they're all working away on that quite actively. The other news for 2026, there will be new anti-money laundering legislation that will come in and actually bring in the property industry, where previously it was sort of like, things could be a little bit floaty. So there'll be no more cash deposits coming in a bag like that actually used to happen. And now not allowed to do that. So there'll be more scrutiny over that, and also more robust identification things. So when you buy, you might be asked to fill out a few more forms. And of course, finally, federal hijinks. So look, while it can be sort of entertaining watching what's happening with the Liberal Party, uh, there there was a little bit of noise about changing taxation legislation, so capital gains tax or negative gearing. Really, it just seems like that's noise at the moment, but yeah, we'll watch and see. So right now, yeah, over to you, Scott, for international.
Sure. Some international news. We had the U.S. Federal Reserve held its interest rates at the January meeting. There's some interesting things happening in that part of the world, as there always are. Hey, how about that Bad Bunny show at the Super Bowl? By the way, that
What was it good? I didn't see it.
oh, you've got to watch it on YouTube. It's outstanding.
So
It
people
helps
covered
if
the grass.
you know Spanish because he sings it.
Yeah, I don't.
But it was an amazing show. But anyway, back to the the boring U.S. financial stuff. Trump's going to appoint a new head of the Federal Reserve, so they'll be nominating that person to take over for Jay Powell, and they're going to have to be approved by the Congress. The worry there is that the person coming in will get a lot of political pressure to push down rates, maybe prematurely if it's not justified. We've had a long-standing experience here in Australia as well as in the US where there is some independence between our federal banks, national banks, and the federal government. So you can imagine what could happen if those
Mm.
fall under political influence. Over in the commodities space, some softness in iron ore price. That'll affect some of our royalties and income here in Australia. But good news on oil prices, just sort of staying down in the 60s with everything going on around the world, with the war in Ukraine and various things happening in the Middle East. I think everybody should be happy and thankful that oil has remained at a low price that flows through to our petrol prices and keeps inflation lower for all of us. And interestingly, in the shipping space, softer conditions there as capacity has been rising. That means the cost of shipping goods is decreasing. So you can imagine all those building materials that we get from other countries to ship to here to build our houses, the steel, the windows, various things that are imported. If the cost of freight would fall, hopefully some of that will make its way into goods prices as well. Um,
Hopefully.
yeah.
Okay, on to infrastructure. So there wasn't actually too many specifics announced over the last 4 to 6 weeks, but the news was that the Olympic budget, they said, oh, it's been blown out, so there might be some changes to the way the games are actually held and like where different things will be held, and that could impact like infrastructure builds or the plans. Other news: New South Wales, Western Sydney motorway is progressing. So yeah, so the M12 motorway, so that's the link from like there's Liverpool there. Out the back of like Bonnyrigg and all of those areas. So there'll be a new road that takes people through to the airport and connects up to the new M9. So that honestly will have a very big impact on the prices of properties over here and also on the other side. So if that's you, lucky you. Other news, the Western Sydney Airport is on track to open in November. They are in testing, so could open earlier, but I guess there's no scheduled flights until November. Victoria Metro Rail Tunnel is now open and being used despite all of the protests. And in Western Australia, they will be working on a large expansion to Perth Airport. You can imagine with all of the people moving there and everything that's going on, there's going to be a lot more infrastructure required, and the government is well funded to be able to put it out there. All right.
Yes.
So next, we've got our In Focus session. So every market watch, we cover off a really detailed aspect of property. And for this episode, we're covering off the most popular strategies people are using this year to leverage into their dream home. And so with that broad brief, over to you, Scott, to get it started.
Sure. So we each took a slightly different tact at this topic, I think. So see
Yeah.
maybe two different approaches and thinking here. My thought was, well, what's the target property we are after? So I went to median house prices, had a look at a few areas.
Mm,
The Sydney median house price is 1.6 million now. Brisbane, for example, is 1.2, and
mm,
some of the regions are under a million.
mm.
So I was just sort of envisioning I'm starting almost from scratch, and I want to have that type of house as my end goal.
Yeah.
How would I get there, and what are some of the things I might be looking into? Um, So that rolls into just I made a list of some options here that you can put on your own laundry list and make sure you're checking all of these out. The first thing always is, can I buy the property that I want now, that dream house that I'm after, with my existing resources? Um, so look into ways to boost your income, cutting your expenses. I constantly see people with these very large car loans of 30, 40, $50,000. Those have a massive impact on your borrowing capability.
It's the dad coming out in you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I saw the term the other day, a runaround car. So you buy a $10,000 runaround car and get that house bought. Look, put off the fancy car purchase for a couple of years because it's much more important to get that property now.
Yeah.
Family member guarantors can help you get into the property market if you don't have enough deposit. So they're going to pledge a portion of their equity in their property to help you out. But please be aware that they are responsible for your mortgage then. So be responsible with any help you get. And it's just always important to work with a great mortgage broker. You always hear that from Debra and myself. Find somebody who's good, get them on your team. Even if you're not ready to buy right now, they will work with you, put your finance plan together as you make progress and get through some of these steps. Number two is you want to leverage all this government assistance that is out there. And it ranges from sort of still this first home super saver program that I still feel many people don't know about, where you can save extra money in your super, and that can be then pulled out and used for a house deposit. It's a pretty decent amount that can be saved. So it's $15,000 per year per person, and you can save up to $50,000. So that would be $100,000 in extra savings that you could make. You've got to make the contributions into super, but they're only taxed at 15% on the way in. And many of you are probably paying 40% tax rate. So, it's always hard to save more for a property deposit, but in this case, there's some extra government help there. So please look into that. That's done through super programs themselves. And there are various state and federal programs to help people as well. There's first home buyer stamp duty concessions. Those are very aggressive up in Queensland because they pulled the price cap off of new properties there. So you can buy almost anything and have it be stamp duty exempt. There are first home buyer grants of between $10,000 and $30,000. Those are on new purchases only. And new schemes called Help to Buy, which are co-equity ownership programs with the government. So you will allow the government to buy 30 or 40% of your house with you. The benefit to you is that you only have to pay your share of the mortgage. The disadvantage is when you later go to sell that property, if you make some money on the property, you're going to have to pay the government out and pay them their share.
Yeah, but it's better than paying rent for the rest of your life, right?
Well, it is. And interestingly enough, you don't pay any rent on their 30%. So it does help with cash flow. So if this was your way to get into the market, and you got in and you got a good property and you did sell it, or buy them out after 5 years. Yeah, I think you're still going to be way ahead.
Yeah.
And then three is just moving into some property related strategies. We all talk about rent vesting and what that means. In my world, that means typically buying land and building a house. So if you can do that very well, you can create some equity in that property. So we're going to do that in a different market that's lower priced than the one you're trying to buy in. So we're not out investing in $1.5 million houses in Sydney, but we may be investing in $600,000 and $700,000 houses out in other markets. We've had a few people look at a faster way of doing that, which would be to tackle a duplex project. So you can actually get a block of land, build the two houses on that, and subdivide and create equity faster. So you can create a big chunk of equity at the front. And if you bought in a good area, continue to get growth on that. What you're doing is getting some assets that you actually can later sell if you need to. or access the equity in those to help you buy that dream property. And I just wanted to make a note. It's very important to have a good property savvy accountant to help you with all of that, because there's many issues around capital gains tax and even the ATO looking at what you're doing and saying, that looks like you're running a business. We're not going to give you some of these capital gains tax discounts that you might get as a normal investor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And there's also the GST, which people forget about all the time.
absolutely GST, and just always a warning on that. You've got to make sure you know what the GST position is. If you sell those properties and you had to pay GST, I mean, that's going to be 10% of the price of that property is withheld from you
Yeah.
from the sale proceeds.
But with a good accountant, that can work magic.
Yes. Or at least put your plan together so you know what you're getting into, let's
Yeah.
say.
Know what's going to happen, like plan it out, like see the end result and work towards it. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
I've got a few pretty pictures, I believe, on the next page. So just a little example of what I'm talking about here on the left. We've showed these types of projects before, but that is a duplex project built on a block of land. Actually, one of our clients is building that up north of Newcastle, and sort of got that at kind of quite a good price. He'll end up with 2 3-bedroom houses, and if we've played that one right, we'll have first home buyers he can sell those houses to in 3 years, 5 years, or even hold them 10 plus years.
Yeah.
On the right is a planning framework that we use, and what we really try to help clients think about are buying sort of some smaller priced houses over a period of time. They might be over 3 to 5 years, getting growth in those properties and then extracting some of that equity out of those. So it's just sort of a bit of a snapshot on maybe what a planning document might look like.
Yeah.
I know Debra does quite a lot of that planning. Well, in the olden days, we did more of it, I think, but we've kind of moved into this, as we were saying, much faster paced world where people would like the planning and they want to do the planning, but we often don't have a lot of time to do as much. So we've got to move faster through it, right?
So we do it.
Yes,
Yeah.
there we go. So yeah, gonna sort of shift over to Debra and let's have a look at some of the ideas she's come up with to help her clients.
So I really took the brief as written. Scott's covered, preparing, but I'm assuming that you are prepared and you have been saving. And so what are the top 3 strategies that people can use this year, or that people are using this year? Of course, the best, lowest cost option is to start with a unit. And I looked last night just to double check. There is at least 200 units in and around Sydney of like that 500K range. Of course, I'm talking about ideally at least 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms if you can get it, but buy in an older size block that has land around it, so not where they're all crunched in together. Though one of my clients had a unit close to in a beach suburb, and they are stacked closer together, and he just worked with other owners in the block and they redeveloped, and now they've got these beautiful units that are now worth probably 4 times the amount that they paid for when they bought the older style block. But to keep it simple, buy something within your budget and move in, and ideally buy a block where there's a smaller amount of units, not a bigger amount.
Yeah.
And yeah, so, and of course you can do a bit of cosmetic renovation there. The other strategy is really the rent vesting. Lots of different options for that. Just really work with your budget and look for areas with good capital growth, good rental return, and ideally on larger size blocks where it has opportunity to either add a granny flat, add a room, do a little bit of cosmetic renovation.
Mm.
Yeah, and so then the option for there would be, you utilize either the cash flow or the equity growth, grab that and utilize that for your deposit on your dream home, or buy a couple fairly quickly and uh, mm, so buy a few of these and then use the equity for the home. Like once you've got one or two, that opens up a lot of different options. Then the third one that we're seeing like really, really active, and which I love because it's the way I started, which is buying a home that needs a bit of attention, probably a little bit further out of like the main centres, but still in a good location. So older style where you can do a little bit of light cosmetic renovation, stay in it, and then some people will keep that house, use the equity increase to buy their next one, or they sell and then just upgrade. So these are really, it's not like buy uh, and in 6 months' time, you've got your dream home. We're talking like a 1 to 3 year period to leverage your way into buying the property that you want to live in forever. And any questions from you, Scott, on that? Not
Oh,
really.
great stuff. God, I remember doing some renovations.
Yeah. Yeah. So I
Some
love
people,
renovating.
some people love it.
Some people love it. I love it. Scott does not.
You love it. I
Anyway,
know
it's
you
got
do.
silver scars, and that's for all of you to like. That's actually a really, really good point, because if you don't love it, then don't do it. There's a lot of other ways to leverage into your dream home. But if you're in the middle and you don't know, then you should give it a go, I think. But but it comes down to the individual, and that's a very, very important point to make.
Very good.
Okay, so wrapping up then. So once again, be very, very careful. We always recommend that when you're choosing property, that you make sure you make your choices based on good independent data. Don't just buy something like with a report where someone said, "Oh, this is a really good place." Always validate that information that they have given you, because we see too often that there's a lot of misleading reports that are out there. So use trusted and validated sources. Always conduct the financial pros and cons, like we were saying before, where Scott mentioned work with an accountant or work with someone like Scott and I, where we will know what the expected outcome will be when you're buying something. And so you need to know what the end result's going to be before you make that first decision. Use criteria that's tailored to your requirements. What's right for someone else might not be right for you. Like Scott was saying, he's not a real keen renovator, whereas I love it. So it's fine for you to do what works for you and stay in that lane. Okay, so if you need some help, you can reach out to Scott. You can find him on Facebook as Scott Property Coach there. And he's got a really great and very loud following. That's, yeah, which is good. And for me, you can find me at Property Frontline. What we are doing, like the workshops are happening in March, but we've got this new service that has been designed for people who want to figure out really what their strategy should be. So there's a lot of choices, as we were showing you, and it's really important to get that clear before you leap into the market. I developed these workshops because I've seen so many years of people turning up to auctions and not being able to even make a first bid. You don't have to do that. There's ways around making your decisions before you really get going into your search, and that way you'll have a better, a more direct approach to your search, and of course less stress and avoiding any traps. So yeah, look out for the details of these workshops. I'll have it in the description box, as will all of our contact details. So next time, we'll be covering off the big infrastructure episode. So make sure you tune in for that. We'll be doing that in a few weeks. So make sure you subscribe if you want to know when we publish that. And really, so thanks very much for watching. Thanks also for your time, Scott.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for
Alrighty.
everyone hanging in there. I think that was one of our longer podcasts. So hopefully we kept it jam-packed and kept your attention.
Yeah. Of course, if anyone's got any questions, you can reach out to Scott and myself. As I mentioned, our contact details will be in the description box, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.